Just look at this man's face. What do you think about looking at this man? Who is he? What had he done? In fact, those monstrous things he had done shocked all of America. With his own hands, he had been doing disgusting and horrendous things. But before I start telling this story, I have to ask impressionable people and pregnant women to stop watching this video. And if you eat something, it is better to stop eating your meal because your appetite can disappear for a long time. So if you're ready, here we go. Joseph Roy Metheny was born in 1955 in Baltimore. He had been neglected as a child, and his father was an alcoholic. Their family was very poor. When Metheny was about 6, his father died in a car accident. There were 6 children in the family. And for a mother it was very difficult to raise them. And Metheny's mother had spent all her time working to earn money in order to feed her children. She had to work hard as a waitress, barmaid, and food truck driver, but she tried her best to provide her children with a normal family life. Anyway, too often she was not at home. And her 6 children felt really neglected while she worked double shifts outside the home. The mother often sent Joseph to live with other families in foster-like arrangements. Metheny was a completely normal kid. He was quite good at studying. Moreover, Metheny was an above-average student. He was always polite, and not mean as a child. When he finished school, he decided to join the army. And in 1973, when he turned 18, he became a soldier. He served a tour in Vietnam. And there he became addicted to heroin. After he joined the army, Metheny seldom contacted his mother. When everything happened, she said to the press,
"He just kept drifting further and further away. I think the worst thing that ever happened to him was drugs. It's sad, sad story."
After army, he was ironically known as Tiny, as he was tall, large-framed, and really overweight. He was spending too much time in bars. At the time, he was living with bands of homeless men in makeshift camps in South Baltimore. He had been addicted to drugs, so he had been spending nearly all of his money on crack cocaine, heroin, and liquor. However, he held a steady job. He worked as a forklift driver. His colleagues universally described him as intelligent, well-spoken, and very well-mannered person. Once he met a girlfriend. They started living together. They were not married, but they had a son. Unfortunately, his girlfriend was addicted too. It all started in July 1994. As I just said, he was a truck driver and he worked overtime that night. Then he went home as usually. So, when Metheny returned home after work, he found nobody in the house. Their house was empty. His girlfriend had taken the child and left. His girlfriend left him, taking everything with her, including their son. He didn't care about her leaving. But he really cared about his son. Metheny said that she was a junkie and a useless piece of dirt. He would even pay her to disappear from his life. 6 months later, he found out that she had moved to another part of town with some guy. Metheny's girlfriend became a prostitute who was selling herself in exchange for drugs. Later, she was deprived of her parental rights because she had neglected and abused the child. Metheny was full of rage. So, armed with hatred, he decided to take vengeance on his former girlfriend and her new boyfriend. He took an axe and went to find and then punish them. He went where they lived. But they weren't there. Being beside himself with anger, he saw 2 homeless people under the bridge. They were lying on an old, shabby, smelly mattress. He approached and killed them with an axe. But still he wasn't satisfied. That night he saw two prostitutes. So he lured them under the bridge. Then he beat them up, raped and killed. The dead bodies he hid in the bush near the bridge. When he was hiding the second body, he noticed an old black man fishing down the river. That old man was looking right at Metheny. Then, in a second, Metheny picked up a steel pipe lying on the ground, ran towards the man and killed the man. After that, he hooked stones to the dead man and the two girls, and lowered all three of them into the river. For Metheny it was a really busy night. Just imagine 5 murders in 7 hours. He washed up in that river and cleaned up the crime scene as best as he could, then he left. 2.5 weeks later, he was arrested. Waiting for a trial, he spent almost 18 months in a Baltimore jail. The trial itself lasted only a week. But Metheny was released due to lack of evidence. He was free again. So first of all, he went to his old boss, and talked him into giving him back his job, and letting him live in a trailer that belonged to the company. He seemed so sincere that the boss couldn't refuse and gave the keys. In exchange, Metheny promised to keep an eye on the territory. The trailer was located on a dead-end road, isolated from everyone. That's why Metheny really liked it. He moved to the trailer. And he was full of inner aggression, anger and hatred. These destructive feelings needed the way out. So he started searching for the victims. And easily found them. That night Metheny murdered Kathy and Magaziner, a 39-year-old woman. And Kimberly Lynn Spicer. She was 23. These girls had been convicted for prostitution. He lured these 2 cocaine prostitutes to his trailer, then killed and dismembered them. After that he put the flesh in food containers, and put it in the freezer. The remains were buried in small graves in the woods behind the company where he worked. The body remained there for more than 2 years. Later he said that he had strangled one of those girls, and put her head in a box, and threw it in the trash. Over the next few weeks, he came up with a horrendous idea. It's even disgusting to imagine, but he decided to open a burger restaurant. But there he intended to sell burgers. Made of his victims. So he put a small stand near the road. And on weekends he sold roast beef and pork sandwiches. He cooked from that meat and sold sandwiches. Passing by truckers, tourists and ordinary drivers often stopped at his stand and bought sandwiches, not even knowing what terrible mince they had been made of. Later he told the police. They were very good. Human meat tastes like pork, so if you mix them, no one will notice the difference. People really liked them. Everything was going great until I ran out of the secret ingredient. So Metheny decided to lure another prostitute into his trailer. I never had to go far to find a victim, for most of truck stops across the United States had prostitutes working in and around them. On December 8, 1996 he kidnapped Rita Kemper. He brought the girl into the trailer and attempted to rape her. She refused to have sex with him, and ran out of the trailer, so he chased her. He beat her up, and dragged her back into the trailer. He tore off her clothes and continued beating her. She was screaming loudly, but no one else could hear her screams. And Metheny was just laughing at her efforts. Then he attempted to murder her, saying, "I'm going to kill you and bury you in the woods with the other girls." When he turned away for just a second, the girl managed to escape. The company was surrounded by a 2 and 5 meter high barbed wire fence. Next to it were wooden boxes, about 3 meters high. And the girl climbed them and climbed over the fence, then ran to the main road, where she was picked up by a guy in a pickup truck. Together they went to the gas station, where they called the police. Metheny knew that the police would be there soon. but he didn't run away. Instead, he gathered up the girl's clothes, grabbed the keys to the gate, and went to open them. As soon as he got out, a police officer jumped up to him, pulled out a gun, and ordered him to get on the ground. Upon his arrest, Metheny told police that no one had complained about the meat. In fact, no one seemed to notice that his burgers had a little something extra in them. After detention, it was said that he had chosen young white prostitutes who were addicted to heroin and cocaine. The killings also involved brutal sexual assaults. Metheny claimed that he had also killed 3 other prostitutes along Washington Boulevard in Baltimore, although there was no evidence of most of those crimes other than his confession. He said that he had thrown bodies in the river, but they had never been found. The Baltimore Sun reported in 1997 that it was not clear how truthful his claims were about how many people he had killed, although he said that he had killed up to 10 people. His attorney tried to persuade the court that Metheny was remorseful and that drugs and alcohol had changed his personality and made him violent. By the way, during the trial, Metheny himself did not feel remorse or guilt for what he had done. But the only thing he regretted is that he had not been able to find his girlfriend and her lover in order to kill them. He was tried in 1997 in the Kemper case and given a sentence of 50 years for kidnapping and attempted sexual assault. He was acquitted of attempting to murder Rita Kemper. He was sentenced to death in 1998 for the murder of Spicer. At his sentencing hearing, he said that he committed murders because he enjoyed it, he got a rush out of it, got a high out of it, and had no real excuse why other than he liked to do it. Let's listen to his words.
I am a very sick person. I have never shed a tear for those I have killed. Those sweet young prostitutes that I killed in my past were pretty much dead to the world long before I killed them. They were nothing more than walking zombies looking for a few moments of pleasure from their sick, twisted daily lives of shame. I feel I have done these poor souls a favor. If I feel anything for them, I feel only some jealousy for their pains are over. But mine will continue on as I sit behind these bars till the day that I die.
In August 1998, he pleaded guilty to murdering and robbing Magaziner, and prosecutors sought the death penalty in that case, as well. But he received a sentence of life in prison in that case. And his death sentence was overturned in 2000, and the sentence for the murder of Spicer was reduced to life without parole. The rationale for the death penalty was that the murder had been committed in committing a robbery, but the evidence indicated that robbery was not his motivation.
So, the next time you're riding down the road, and you happen to see an open pit beef stand that you've never seen before, make sure you think about this story before you take a bite of that sandwich. Sometimes you never know who you may be eating.
A serial killer who sold his victims' remains in barbecue sandwiches has died in prison. At the age of 62, Joe Metheny was found unresponsive by a prison guard in Maryland, where he was serving 2 life sentences, having escaped a death sentence on appeal. He was found dead in his cell around 3 p.m. Look at the screen. This is one of his drawings. This drawing is signed, Tiny Arts. Tiny was his nickname, which was because he was very large, and made fun of himself being overweight. Look attentively at this drawing. Metheny had left a bloody fingerprint on it. It's pretty crazy, but now this drawing is sold on one website. Any person can buy it for $70. To tell the truth, I don't know who may want to buy this thing. Because the man who had drawn it had brought too much violence, pain and dirt to this world.